And hello, everyone and no one, and welcome to a, well, basically special edition of the Rotten movie reviews. So we could have some other folks join us. One wasn't planned, but I think he's off in the restroom real quick because that was a longer movie than I was expecting. But with us, as always, is Tier Alexander. Tier, how you doing?
I'm doing good, my friend, and you are?
Oh, not so bad. Obviously, as well with us is Angela Arriaga. Angela, how you doing?
Doing great. Surprised you didn't realize it was going to be a long movie. It is MCU after all.
I couldn't remember how long it was being. And joining us on this special edition is the One-Ton Hammer.
Hello,
Senor
everybody.
Hammer, how are you doing?
I'm well. You?
Oh, not so bad. And we also have with us the Hate Camel, but I think he went to go use the restroom. I'm going to take that as he did. Today we are reviewing Spider-Man No Way Home, the most recent live action where they actually brought all three Spider-Men together. And better than I had expected. I'm still not the biggest fan of the live actions, but it was definitely an entertaining movie. I'm not even going to go into like a plot and anything with it being for how 2021 film. If you don't know what's going on with the Marvel universe, you are actively avoiding it or living under a rock. But we'll go with the overall thought process of, or not process, but opinions of the movie without getting too heavily detailed. Tier, your opinion.
I hated it. Some of the choices really angered me. I like the fight scenes, cool ass fight scenes. They wanted to do a Sinister Six movie without actually having the Sinister Six, and it kind of showed.
Well, yeah, because they were setting up Sinister Six at the end of the Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, and this was clearly them doing the Sinister Six without the entire Sinister Six. I was a little miffed that there weren't any Tom Holland Spider-Man enemies, but kind of fucking killed them all. So, yeah.
And that one, Angela, yours?
My opinion of this movie, I actually really enjoyed um this version of the story. I actually really liked the changes that they made, and I liked how it was how it was displayed that all three Spider-Men are legitimate.
And Hammer, since this was your choice, your opinion of the film?
Well, there's a lot of perspectives to look at the movie to determine what's good and bad. I think there were a lot of brilliant moves. The proper integration of all three Spider-Mans into one movie. You felt like you were watching the continuation of the other two franchises.
Yes, I will agree with that.
It was very, very well constructed, very well put together to make sure everybody there were little things in there that spoke to it that were almost subliminal. Of course, the three Spider-Man thing.
Mm-hmm.
Peter, we're all Peter. Peter Parker, well, we're all Peter Parker too. That whole scene, there was maybe 15 things in that scene that if you weren't watching, you'd miss.
Well, plus there was the point when they all met and they're all in this basically in the Spider-Man costume, and they kind of had to all point at each other to pull up the legitimate Spider-Man meme.
Right, that's the part I was talking about. But there was a scene where, in that scene where Peter and MJ are talking to each other, and Spider-Man 2, what's his name? Garfield is standing next to him. Three, whatever number. Garfield was the name I was looking for. But Garfield's off to the left. He's facing the camera, but not looking at the camera. And Tom Holland says something to his girlfriend, and he looks up at him like, "Why are you saying that?" It was only a split second, but you could see that he was curious as to why Spider-Man was saying that to MJ. Little things like that where you have to, if you're not watching everybody at all times, like almost peripherally, you'd miss them.
It's one of those things that it's kind of meant for more of the multiple views, so there's little things you can catch on the replay.
And the comedy in the entire movie itself was great,
So
especially
that's
when Spider-Man 2 uses his web out of his wrist instead of having a web shooter.
But to go too much further, and that whole thing, we'll get into this a bit more. Camel, since you're back, your opinion of the film.
This is only the second time I've watched it, but I found it enjoyable. The action was well executed. I like like Hammer said, it felt like a continuation of the Raimi Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man franchises. You know, you got some resolutions for Garfield's Spider-Man. Got to see Tobey Maguire, mentoring the younger versions of himself. All in all, is a solid story. Definitely worth multiple viewings.
Okay, well, since we know Tyr is the person who has the most gripes without getting into the ending of it and that whole thing, let's get into the argument. Tyr.
My main gripe is having Aunt May deliver Uncle Ben's line. Main gripe. Main issue with that. Literally, he becomes Spider-Man because of that line being said to him at that moment. Like, great power comes with responsibility, and him not using that responsibility to allow Uncle Ben to be killed. That's why he becomes Spider-Man. And to have her deliver that line after he is Spider-Man, after he chooses this path.
Yeah, after he's been Spider-Man for several years.
Yeah, it makes no sense. And another issue I have with the story is they all know that, all right, maybe it's not widely known that magic exists, but there are enough people to know that magic exists that you can't honestly believe your eyes. And to have that shield does not have someone, oh yeah, we know it's not him. Like, you're telling me that no one in shield, because again, he was working with Nick Fury. Even if it was a fake Nick Fury was still using Shield's resources to get everything in Far From Home. You're telling me that Fury didn't tell anybody, yeah, like fucking Mysterio's the evil. And what? And again, they destroyed Tony's legacy. Like, how do you not develop a failsafe? It pisses me off. And that's why I hate this series. Tony gets destroyed by it. Like, everything after Homecoming destroys Tony's legacy.
And retorts, I've only seen this movie of that, Far From Home and Homecoming just did not appeal to me, considering the fact, like, it was brought up of, he comes Spider-Man for somehow before having to deal with that whole thing, and Ben's already dead. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was glad that I didn't have to see another fucking Uncle Ben death.
Agreed.
It's kind of like that whole thing. If I have to see
Batman's parents get killed.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I gotta see Thomas and Martha Wayne get killed again, I'll shoot them myself.
Yeah.
Or Krypton get destroyed again.
Was there did Ben die? Did we see Ben die in Garfield's version?
Yeah, you do see Ben die in Garfield's.
It's not the same thing to where it was, him have done the wrestling gig, like in the Raimi and then the Amazing Spider-Man cartoon, I believe. I can't remember exactly what was the cause. I
believe he sees a criminal. He's in a store. He sees a criminal with a gun, and he tries to stop him.
Yeah.
I believe that's how Ben dies.
I got one more thing. Like, I think the reason why I find this movie enjoyable is partly because I haven't seen Far From Home or Homecoming. This is the only Marvel movie I've seen since Endgame. I tuned out with all the Disney Plus series, and I tried watching WandaVision, and that's when I just noped out of Marvel. But this one, was getting such a positive reviews and everything, and people were, for the most part that I saw, they were enjoying it. I guess maybe comparatively with all the new Marvel stuff that was coming out. I was like, all right, I'll give this one a shot.
I mean, I still liked how they went about doing things in it, like the whole fact of, in a way, all the Peters, or it's like the other two previous Peters, actually get like the solid redemption. They're able to save Osborn. They're able to save Sandman. He's able to save the Lizard again. Because I'm pretty sure, I don't remember if he died in that one because that's the first movie. But like the biggest thing is, he gets to save the girl. It's like, Garfield gets to save the girl.
That's another issue I had. Sandman didn't die. Sandman just kind of floated away.
He just left, but they got to save him to where, what I mean by that is, like, he's going to be able to see his daughter again. And that's the biggest thing, because he knew with how he was, he wouldn't have been able to.
Wouldn't it have been a smarter thing to bring in the Topher Grace's Eddie Brock and have him?
No, that was the worst part of the Raimi Spider-Man.
Yeah,
it was the worst part. Or have him save fucking Harry. Have the two goblins team up, father and son, and have him save both of them. I mean, technically, he didn't even need to save her.
Would they have been able to afford Franco on top of everyone else they brought in? I mean, they had Jamie Foxx, they had Willem Dafoe.
It's an awful lot of characters.
Well, I mean, not only that, but I mean, just budget wise, like, like that. What was the budget of No Way Home? Like,
it had to be huge.
I mean, Jamie Foxx he's got to be getting at least $20 million a movie.
Yeah.
And no telling what Willem Dafoe's rate is.
If he saves the father, doesn't he automatically also save the son?
No, because
plausibly, I mean, it's
the
probably
son only became the problem when his father died, right?
That is kind of like the whole problem with the multiversal stories, isn't it? Like, you pull one string and a lot of other stuff gets unraveled.
Yes,
Dave?
Hello?
I'm like going, you just said and then went dead.
Yeah.
Oh, good dead.
Well,
death is a good thing.
It just depends on the exact point when Green Goblin is saved.
He pulled them from their death.
Yeah.
Okay, if he pulled them from their death, then there is no Hobgoblin.
But there also is no Octavius, because Octavius happened because Harry wanted revenge.
I
think what the thing
was... Not really, because Otto was going nuts anyway because of the... If you remember, each of his tentacles was a separate part of his psyche. So he was already going nuts anyway.
Oh, so I think the biggest thing on that was, instead of having the closure at death, it's supposed to be that they have the closure before death. Except for, like I said, Sandman. It's that whole thing of he just wants to go home, and they're like, we're going to help you so that when you go home, you can hold your daughter in your arms again.
And it's another thing. Sandman really wasn't a villain. Like, why did Sandman go nuts? Like, you want to be with your daughter. Like, yeah. Let's go.
Well, that was the whole thing. He was wanting the box so he could try to go home. That was the thing.
Yeah, all people he should have been helping them.
Yeah.
He originally started out being a help.
Yeah.
And then he became influenced by Jamie Foxx's character, and
isn't
he has trust issues here.
Yeah, Electro.
But it's not even about trust issues. Like, it's more about, all right, I want to go home, and if I help them, they're going to send me there.
because he's getting frustrated. Again, it's that he has trust issues, and honestly, he's just gotten to the point where he doesn't care if
Or
the
if they
rest
push
of,
the button.
or if they push the button. He's just trying to take care of him and get to where he wants to go.
Wasn't Marco an escape con in the Raimi in Spider-Man 3
Yeah, and
Yes.
when he fell into the particle collider?
yes,
Yeah, man, escape cons, they're looking out for number one.
Even if he is looking out for his daughter, he's still.
Well, I mean, he's looking out for number one so he can get what he wants, which is to see his daughter again.
Yeah.
That's all he wanted in Spider-Man 3. That's why he escaped.
Yeah.
She was
You were
sick.
you were asking about the budget earlier.
Yeah.
The budget for the movie was $200 million. That's estimated. Its gross profit worldwide, $1.9 billion.
Damn.
It is the largest box office hit for any Spider-Man movie.
See, I will.
Now is that just the production budget? That doesn't count like marketing and everything, right?
and promotion. Yeah,
But is it the $200 million production budget?
I'm looking at IMDb and it says budget $200 million estimated. That's all it says.
Because I have to say, like,
I don't have IMDb Pro.
You factor in like all the actors' salaries, and then
Well,
I was actually impressed, like the CGI and all the all that stuff. It was, I mean, pretty seamless, at least in my eye.
There was only one part where the CGI was bad, and that was when all the characters were in the basement and Lizard was talking. If you watch the mouth, in that dark scene, it was way off.
Yeah.
I mean, but
that's only one thing, though.
With a human lizard, I mean, you're gonna have it be kind of uncanny no matter what you do, I guess.
Yeah.
So
it just looks like they depended on the darkness to hide mistakes. That's all.
And that character didn't really have a whole lot of screen time either.
No.
I like Jamie Foxx the Shocker this time around because Blue Shocker didn't really appeal to me in Amazing Spider-Man. But after he got Stark's reactor,
yeah.
And if you notice, every time he fired off a shot, it mimicked the comic book version of the Shocker or of
Electro. And if you looked at it at a certain point, and when he was charging up in the fight, it had the lightning bolt across the face. In the classic cartoon. Now I thought that was a great touch.
That was a nice touch, and I thought.
I will still say of all the freaking Spider-Man movies, other than the Raimi, because that's about the only one where Peter isn't a complete fucking idiot. The one thing I am getting that's most tired of is it seems every live action iteration of Spider-Man, they keep making Peter dumber
and younger.
Oh, the younger thing, they're going back to the beginning, and Peter starts that whole shit at like 16 in every iteration. So that's a big whatever. But I'm tired of the fact that, other than a quaint feel, like, okay, the Lizard, I can understand. Dr. Octavius, I can understand. Hell, even Norman Osborn to a point of being like his scientist version of this one, I can understand. But Peter's intellect is still supposed to rival theirs at that age. Like,
he's supposed to be one of the smartest human beings alive.
Yeah, he's actually freaking, when he gets older, outdoes intellectually Mr. Fantastic, who's considered the smartest person in the MCU.
He did manage to conquer the mirror universe pretty quick with math.
Yes. But for so much other shit in there, like, he openly admits of just how he's so dumb and how others are so much smarter, and it's just like he's had to rely too much on other people when in those things he's just done very well himself.
Well, Holland's Spider-Man, I hate to say this, but they tried to bridge too many things into this one. I mean, they tried to take, like Tier said earlier, the Sinister Six without having that in there. They also tried to take, what was it? Madam Web's.
Yep.
Where they had all the extra Spider-Man.
Yep, by giving it to fucking Doctor Strange.
Uh-huh.
Just keep in mind that just because it exists in the comics doesn't mean it has to exist in the movies as well.
Well, when you
Exactly,
blend,
but that's what they tried to put it in there.
Again, it's that whole thing. It's a comic book movie, so they tend to have several comic books, but they put together. It's that whole thing of the reason why I said, like, I still say, even after seeing this with having all three Spider-Man, I think the Andrew Garfield portrays the best Spider-Man. He still had the snarkiness, the sarcasm, while still fighting.
The writers did a good job on that.
they did keep the
And
essence alive.
that's the character of Spider-Man, which is why, even though he doesn't have the accent, I still think in a lot of cases, Tobey Maguire is honestly the best Peter Parker if he'd stop whispering so fucking much.
Right.
Yeah.
Though I like
Well-
I'm going to say Peter Holland again, even though I know it's Tom Holland. He's
can't stand
actually
Tom
my
Holland.
favorite Peter Parker, but
I mean, I like the having Peter age down to being a high schooler. With Holland, he does fit that bill.
Even though he's like in his late 20s.
Well, now,
Well-
yeah. I mean, he was what?
No.
Still, he was like early 20s.
He was still mid 20s at the beginning, if I remember correctly.
when he
Compare
came
that
into the
yeah,
Tobey
he
MCU.
was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
25 or so.
Compare that to Tobey Maguire, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
Could be worse.
I like I said, I love the Raimi Spider-Man movies. But I look back on it, and it's got like a Wet Hot American Summer vibe for me, because like you got Tobey Maguire playing a high school Peter and Spider-Man.
Kirsten Dunst playing MJ.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
And then the guy that plays Flash, was it Thompson, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
His bully. I mean, that's the dude from was it Joe? I can't remember how to pronounce his last name, but like he's from like True Blood and what
Oh,
else?
Joe Manganiello.
Yeah. Mr. Sofia Vergara until they got divorced.
I will still openly admit that at least I think that they got character aspects of the particular character. Like if they wanted to have Tom Holland Flash be a nerdy person, fine, but give him a different name. Because that's kind of like where I still have slight issues with Ned being, well, a chubbo.
Yeah.
Because he's supposed to be, skinnier because he's supposed to turn into the Hobgoblin
In the comics.
in the comics.
Mm-hmm.
I guess if I had to like pick some points that I didn't like about the movie, Tom Holland, he didn't do like the emotional scenes all that well. Like they had the whole like tears in the rain, like fucking Blade Runner, for like his big emotional scene. Meanwhile, like Zendaya, she was able to cry on command, get that single tear like a good Indian on the freeway.
Oh, wow.
I think you mean good Italian on the freeway.
Yeah, well,
You gotta watch the editing on that too, because the camera wasn't on here for 5 minutes, and after 4 minutes she started crying. It switched to her, and immediately there was a tear, which means somebody walked up to her just before the film started, squirted a little bit of Visine in her eye, and then they printed it.
Or she like pulled
I
her
mean,
nose
they
hair
didn't
or
do a whole
something.
rainstorm for her though,
Dug her
Hammer.
nails
Yeah.
out of her eye.
But you see, the point I'm making is that there was no lead up to her crying. They cut to her and she was already crying. It's like, was that real tears?
You never had one just leak out on you,
I don't cry.
I will think it's fun. I just do think it's kind of funny that they kind of alluded to Into the Spider-Verse by having Jamie Foxx's character. There's got to be a black Spider-Man somewhere.
Yeah.
That's not Black
What's his
Spider-Man.
name? Miles Morales, right?
Mhm.
Fuck Miles Morales.
Which is-
you're from Queens,
which is
But
funny
he's not
because
black.
if you-
He's
help the poor.
Hispanic.
Yeah, he's half black, half Puerto Rican.
He's a black Spider-Man, but not Peter Parker.
So he wouldn't count.
Let's start that controversy.
Honestly, well, I'm not the biggest fan of them, and I know the problem that they had is they actually modeled quite a bit of like Tom Holland's personality of Spider-Man and Peter Parker after the more recent iterations of the Miles Morales Spider-Man. I will still admit I don't think Miles Morales is a great Spider-Man, and I don't think it's the way they should have went. But I at least think they did the handoff properly by having the Peter Parker Spider-Man hand over the moniker of Spider-Man to Miles Morales instead of doing what they typically do, to where we're going to say, well, we're going to retcon the entire story and do this character is now black.
Yeah. Woke
Really
Spider-Man.
quick.
By
I don't like
Odin's
the way they're
weave.
flating them. I don't like the way they're overselling. Can't stand. He's been an Asgardian. He's been a mutant. He's worked with every superhero team. At some point, they're gonna have him literally be the MCU universe. It's fucking horrible.
Bro,
I can't stand Miles.
No, they're not going to give that to Miles Morales. Spider-Gwen
Yes,
already
they will.
fucking has that. No, she's already got that because she's gone to every fucking Spider-Verse basically in the comics. Have you not seen Polydub's shit on that?
Nope.
Oh god, dude, it's if you think the Miles Morales one is bad, the Spider-Gwen one is even worse because not only does she get to go to basically all the universes, she has absolutely zero consequences from any of it.
Oh god, Jesus Christ, kill me now.
Yeah, I can't remember which one it is. You're gonna have to go back through Polly's channel and go through the comic book curations. It was I would say probably in the last year and a half of when from when it ended. But yeah,
But they were constantly bitching about the Gweniverse.
Yeah, because that's basically no long, like you have the MCU Spider-Verse, for the live action, and you kind of have the MCU animated Spider-Verse, but that's become the Miles and Gwen, which is still predominantly, even when you go to the comics, the Gweniverse.
Oh god, Jesus Christ! I just want Peter Parker back.
I still prefer Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. So
I also know something about this movie that I don't think anybody seems to have caught on to is the makeup was fantastic. These people they look like in this movie every bit as if they were just 3 weeks later from their old franchise. Nobody seems to have aged except for Tobey Maguire.
Yeah, that's the only one.
Everybody else looks just like they did in the old movies. Those movies are almost 10 years old.
Oh yeah, fucking Willem Dafoe and Octavius. Fucking phenomenal on that.
The de-aging on them was pretty good, but I did like how they kind of referenced that in the movie. Like Octavius, like Peter, you grew up,
Yeah.
And how he's he's like Norman Osborn, he died years ago. Like there is some time passed in their universe.
Was there de-aging or was that just makeup?
That was
I think
makeup. That wasn't de-aging.
That wasn't any de-aging in there?
No,
I don't know. That could be a mixture of
Willem
both.
Dafoe, like that could go either way for me. Like,
Willem Dafoe is immortal.
Willem Dafoe always looked old.
I was saying, like, that's why I thought it was de-aging, because
Dafoe looked old.
That's why I thought it was de-aging, because he looked kind of smooth in this movie. Like, I mean, comparing to the Raimi Spider-Man or like, Boondock Saints, that man had lines in his face. He had crevices.
Oh, he still did. They just didn't seem as prominent.
But it seems
somehow
smoother, yeah.
Well, remember, most of he had maybe 1 or 2 scenes in the light.
Everything else was predominantly in the dark, or he was hooded or something like that.
Yeah.
Also, they used the lines, if you notice, and I think it was actually a makeup effect rather than a de-aging effect. But they used the lines to indicate whether he's actually Norman Osborn or whether the Goblin has taken the surface. I am being quiet right now, but that's because I'm basically waiting to unload on tier when everybody's done speaking their piece.
Well, here's the definitive answer. No Way Home saw these villains.
Let Hammer get through it, for fuck's sake.
Sorry, Hammer.
Sorry.
No Way Home saw these villains pulled from their timelines moments before their tragic deaths. So the whole bunch required intense CGI work to de-age them to resemble their last appearance, which in some cases was 2 decades ago. That's from the website thedirect.com.
Okay.
And Willem Dafoe didn't like it.
That doesn't surprise me.
Even Tobey Maguire was de-aged.
Yeah, because it would have been around the Spider-Man 3 time frame. Because that would have made them...
That's the final answer. It was makeup and CGI as well.
Combination.
Yeah.
Yep.
because that would have been it had to make sense because of them throwing Sandman in there. It has to be by at least that time frame. They're not going to pull a Peter from,
I just thought it was amazing makeup.
Yeah,
that's how good it was, and I was like,
so
I didn't.
I guess that like the combination of the two would explain why, like, because like the de-aging that I've seen or that comes to mind is you guys have you guys seen The Irishman?
I've seen it, but it was a long time ago. It was at least a year ago.
Well, I mean, first of all, it's like a 3-hour movie, so like,
yeah, it is.
It's going to take you a while to. I mean, that's 3 hours start to finish. I had to pause and like,
famous director,
bathroom breaks, pack a lunch,
Who's the director? It's a famous director. Oh, Scorsese, right.
Yeah. But I just think about the de-aging they had on De Niro, and it was comical.
Was it?
Like, they had this whole scene where, like, he's like beating up a dude in the street for, I think, was like making like lewd comments to his daughter or something, and you can tell like this is like a 70-something, 80-year-old man who's trying to pretend like he's kicking the crap out of some dude, in the gutter, and. You could tell from the physicality. You could tell from the just looking at the face, like it was uncanny.
How much CGI they use is up to the director. I wouldn't blame Scorsese for not wanting to put money into it because he doesn't believe in it.
I mean, in that situation,
it doesn't look very good.
In that situation, a lot of times it's better to pay someone who looks like him and then do enough makeup and whatnot to have a person look like them and just dub in the lines.
Yeah.
And do some ADR, yeah.
That didn't really work though for Kurt Russell and Guardians 2. Did you see how plastic he looked?
Yes.
That was so bad.
Be careful on that one.
You were mentioning earlier the things that you didn't like. The only thing that really comes to mind for me is the end scene where Holland tries to kill him with his glider. That seemed kind of off, but that wasn't really the point. Was that after Tobey Maguire stops him, he gets stabbed, and I thought to myself, what does this bring to the movie? What advantage? What good thing does this have? A much better. I'm not a person who likes to rewrite movies. A lot of people like to do that. If I was the director, I would have done this. I'm not that guy. But I thought if Holland and Toby are struggling over the glider, that would have been a great part for Garfield to come in from behind everybody and stab him with the cure.
Yeah, that's what I was expecting to happen.
Yeah. Maybe that's why they did it, because you would expect that to happen. So they had to go against expectations. But I think it would have been a much better scene. Yeah. Not ending, but a better scene.
I think they went with the way they did it. They're supposed to try and Holland's the one that's got to grow from the loss of May, and so they want him to be the one to don't kill him, go cure him, because that's like they say in the movie, that's what we do.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, I could see like you were saying, like have a Peter 3, be sneaky Garfield. And yeah.
Honestly,
but
because working together was something that they were trying to do, that would have been a perfect time to show them working together.
Well, I mean, it would have kept with the pattern of them, working together to take them down one by one.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Although,
they broke pattern on that last one.
I'll be honest, I was almost half expecting, instead of it just be the Maguire Spider-Man grabbing the glider, that it would have been both of them grabbing him.
Ooh, that's an interesting thing.
One on each side, and so that way it's not necessarily an even match. It
would be like one grabbing the glider, then the other grabbing him and saying, "No, we don't do this. You're better than this."
No, what it should have been. No. Honestly, what it should have been. It should have been him calling the glider to him in the same manner he did in the first Spider-Man movie, and then have Tobey Maguire stop that, like get in front of it and stop it, and then have him try to force it,
These are all good ideas. You guys came up with like 4 really good endings.
So
awesome.
now Maguire is blocking it, and Tom Holland could either help Toby or take out fucking Green Goblin, and he helps Toby while fucking Andrew is like stabs him in the neck and it stops. Stabs him with the cure.
See, I think the reason why they didn't do that one is because of him activating one of the goblin bombs on the thing, the glider.
Yeah.
Who's Toby?
We're all much better directors than they are.
They're all Peter Parker. There is no Toby.
Your name is Toby.
One other thing I did, one thing I did really enjoy was the older Spider-Man, like the interplay between them two. Like the whole cracking the back and
yeah.
Like that last scene, like they're just sitting there waiting to go back home, and they're Garfield's holding up Maguire. He's like, after the hug, he's like, "You're in so much pain right now, aren't you?" He's like, "Yeah."
When Garfield is on the scaffolding, he says, "I'm lame," and Toby says, "No, you're amazing." What were the names of the movies that he was in?
The Amazing Spider-Man.
Amazing Spider-Man.
I can't.
I did catch that. I was like, oh, it's like he almost said the line.
The point.
You're an amazing Spider-Man. Roll credits.
Also,
after he cracks his back,
the line.
Yeah, after he cracks his back, you look how Garfield is standing. He's got his arms straight out and he's smiling and nodding at him like, "See, it worked, didn't it work?" Good acting. That's good acting.
I think the I don't know. I haven't gone back and looked at any other reviews or anything of this movie. I just just pulling from memory.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the biggest selling point for the movie for a lot of people was the other two Spider-Man. It wasn't Holland at all. Like he was tertiary in his own movie.
Having all 3 together. Yeah.
And everyone that I remember talking about it was the closure for Garfield Spider-Man, the redemption.
You do learn
seeing Maguire back in the suit.
Yeah, you do learn a little bit more about what happens in their universes because Garfield becomes a nasty guy.
Mm-hmm.
I got bitter. I got angry. I stopped pulling my punch straight. So you see a continuation of his arc a little bit. Same thing with Tobey Maguire. But I think people were much more interested in seeing how they were going to integrate those two into that movie. I think that's what people were curious about. How are they going to do it?
I guess that would have to have been the Amazing Spider-Man 3, because in the end of 2, Amazing Spider-Man 2, he didn't seem to be bitter. He still seemed to be his jokey, normal self.
Well, she had just died, right? Gwen Stacy had just died.
I think it's been at least a month. Like he disappeared for an entire month or something. Like he'd been gone for a while.
Totally heal from your girlfriend dying in a month.
I'm not saying that. But
it's holding it. He was able to turn around and build the facade to do that in that amount of time.
Yeah, his whole
that isn't about what he was actually feeling.
Of all the Spider-Man deaths, for Uncle Ben and Gwen Stacy and everybody, of all of them, the one that happened to Garfield with Gwen Stacy was the most Spider-Man's fault death.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Everybody else died because they did things of their own volition. Even Aunt May picks up a something in her hand. I don't even know what she had in her hand to fight the goblin with.
Piece of rebar or concrete.
Is it rebar? Yeah, I couldn't make it out. But they kind of take their lives in their own hand. Ben, tries to stop the guy. He dies because he does that. Aunt May tries to stop the guy. She dies. But Gwen Stacy didn't try to stop anybody. She just wasn't saved by Peter. That was direct,
Well, also in those movies, he had already promised her father in the first movie that he would stay away from her.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So he not only did she die because he couldn't save her, he broke his promise to a dying man on top of it, compounding it all.
Yeah, and they didn't follow like.
Whereas with Uncle Ben and Aunt May, like, he didn't have that weight on his shoulders already.
Well,
hold on just a second. I was saying if you depend on which one you go with in that whole thing, it's implied that she was like plausibly already dead, or that because of him grabbing her, that he, I shouldn't say grabbing her, but hitting her with the web, that he got her death. But if you follow like the traditional of what happened with Gwen Stacy being killed by the Hobgoblin or Green Goblin, except for it would have been, Senior Osborn and that whole thing, she was actually had a broken neck before she was thrown. As they just changed it to where it would weigh on Peter heavier.
See, I'm not up on the comic books.
Oh, that's old.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my knowledge of Spider-Man comes from the cartoons when I was a kid.
Same.
And like Raimi Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man. Like that's what I'm going off of when I'm thinking Spider-Man. It's movies, it's TV. I know some of the storylines from the comics, just osmosis. Hanging out with people who were into the different comic.
Yeah, that one I know because of doing a little searching and researching on people.
I remember either Monkey and Scribe, or it was the comic book curation crew talking Spider-Man, where with the Green Goblin and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But all everything I'm pulling from is either animated or live action media.
Yeah.
But if you notice, though, one y'all are calling Garfield's Spider-Man, when he saved MJ, at the end, it was almost like a redemption for him.
Yeah, we kind of brought that up.
Because he let, because of everything else that Rodman said, it comes full circle with him saving this MJ, which personally, that should have died. 5 minutes into the movie, it's dead.
She should have been.
But that's just one of the many problems I had with the movie, with this series of Spider-Man.
Again, I haven't seen her in the other movies and whatnot. It's like I don't hate her as a person and whatnot. I liked her in The Greatest Show.
Oh, I don't either.
From some of the things I've seen of Tom Holland as a person, I'm not the biggest fan of him.
Well, other than Spider-Man, everything he starred in is bombed at the box office.
I don't know Holland from anything other than the Spider-Man.
Uncharted.
MCU. Never watched it. I played the game, but I never watched the movie.
Everything else he's done has been pretty terrible, except for his stage work. He's a pretty good stage actor.
Well,
he was in Uncharted, I think was the name of the movie.
Yeah. It was like him and Mark Wahlberg.
Where he yeah.
Like I said, I played one of the Uncharted games back in the day, and I enjoyed it, but I had no interest in the movie. Just
because Uncharted's like a lot of other games, they don't fit into a live action media like that unless it's going to be a specific story. But the problem is they always want to go off the story of the games, and those stories tend to be like several hours long and are supposed to be condensed into this small thing. It's like it doesn't work that way. Do a difference. Like if you're going to take the not the license, the series of this whole thing, do a little in between story of other things.
Well, I was turned off by the casting. Like Mark Wahlberg was too young to be playing. Was it Sully?
I don't know.
Yeah, he was far too young to be playing Sully.
Both of them were too young to be playing their respective characters.
Yeah.
And
originally, Mark
for Sully, you needed somebody probably at least in his, I'd say mid to late 50s. You know, you need a guy who's at least got some salt and pepper, going in the hair. More on the gray side.
Yeah.
And Mark Wahlberg just didn't fit that bill. And then I'm sorry, Holland's too short for Drake.
Originally, Mark Wahlberg was going to be Nathan. And
so let's let Angela get into her thing and get back onto the Spider-Man thing before.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Angry.
All due respect to our guests, but we're reviewing Spider-Man.
Oh, this is kind of what happens on these streams. You know better.
I know, but we haven't all spoken our piece.
So let's let Angela get her gripes out so her and Tier can do a little boxing.
Okay. I'm going to stream out.
First, I'm going to address Tier's actual complaints about the movie as opposed to the complaints that he had that aren't actually movie related, just universe related in general.
Yes, ma'am.
Which is, the movie explained very clearly that just because it happened and one person did it in a different universe does not mean that that person is going to say and do the same things in the universe that we're in.
Okay,
Number two, you're looking at a universe where Peter Parker is basically, and yes, she's his aunt, but Peter Parker is basically a teenager being raised by a single mom, not a teenager being raised by his aunt and uncle.
Okay, can I address the first point?
Address the first point.
So there are things that are literally ubiquitous to the character. Like you can't do this one thing, and if Batman's parents aren't killed, it's not Batman, correct? If Krypton doesn't explode, it's not Superman, correct? If Uncle Ben doesn't deliver those lines, it's not Spider-Man. Correct.
So you think
if the person
Uncle Ben
if the person most responsible for the formative moments of Peter Parker does not deliver those lines,
to
it's
quote
not
Dr.
Spider-Man. He is the most formative person in his life.
To quote Dr. Strange, in the grand calculus of the multiverse, their deaths serve a greater purpose.
Yes, and her death served a greater purpose.
It didn't.
It did. Her death served the purpose of teaching him that he cannot act on the basis of revenge alone.
He
and
already
that
learned
is
that
what
lesson.
those lines meant.
He already learned that lesson.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, he did.
He was not
part of what freaking Tony died about that they were brought up because he was kind of filling that role.
And he learned that lesson.
No, because he was not put in a position to take revenge for Tony.
It was a
completely different type of. It's not about the law here. It's about that moment of making that choice. And that is what the line was used to prepare him for.
All right, like I said, there are things that are intrinsic to certain characters. Like you can't, if Batman's parents do not die, he is not Batman. He can never be Batman because those events lead him to becoming the man he is. Krypton exploding is what causes Superman to become Superman. If Krypton does not explode, how does Superman go to Earth to become Superman? If Uncle Ben does not die delivering those lines to him to spur him become Spider-Man, to use the power he is given or he has been granted to do it responsibly.
Strictly the responsibility that he was
Angela,
given.
Do you mind if I ask a question of Tier? Do you mind if I ask a question of Tier?
Yes.
Tier, are you suggesting that Uncle Ben is the nexus point of Peter's growth as a superhero, like Martha and Thomas Wayne, or
yes?
Krypton?
That is exactly
it's
what
specifically
Tyr is saying.
Uncle Ben, and it's not necessarily the scenario.
Again, the scenario could only come around if it starts at his origin point. If it's not at his origin, it makes no fucking sense.
But
Like,
in this universe, though, like I didn't see the first two movies, so I'm kind of at a loss here. Did they establish that Uncle Ben was as close to Peter in this universe as he
No,
was
they
in the other
established
ones?
Uncle Ben was dead, and he and Aunt May have been
On their own
basically
for a extended period of
an
time?
extensive period of time coping with Uncle Ben's death.
Well, how about this? You were speaking about Superman. That he wouldn't be Superman if Krypton hadn't exploded. What happens if there was a political upheaval and they got rid of the child Superman to keep him from getting killed? The planet didn't explode, but it was a legitimate reason to expel him.
Or what about like
him being banned, him being off world and sent to Earth is what causes him to become Superman. Okay. That is something that has to happen. Him not being on Krypton, whether it's an explosion, whether it's political upheaval, whether he just got lost in space, it has to happen. He has to find some way to Earth.
There had
and Peter being bitten by a radioactive spider is what is the nexus of Spider-Man.
That's the nexus of what makes him start to become Spider-Man. Before that whole thing, he wouldn't have become the amazing, it's like your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is what he's going on. Because that'd be like saying that because Thomas Frank, wasn't the military, wasn't the FBI, that he's just going to go out and become a vigilante, and not have his family have been massacred.
You mean Frank Castle?
Frank Castle, sorry.
There's a different...
Yeah.
And I will go back to refer to that later. I have a vantage point on this tier that you don't, because I am the daughter of a single mother, and
I'm the son of a single mother.
Yes, but you are not a single mother yourself. But
if you're going to throw that one out there, then Angela,
I'm saying that I have a different point of view on it that might help you understand the situation, but only if you let me talk.
I'm just saying, I have that same point of view.
Okay, no, both of you stop for a moment. Okay?
Love you, Angela.
Stop interrupting each other for a bit and let Angela get through it so that we can go on from there. If you keep interrupting, we're not going to get anywhere, and it's just going to be arguing back and forth.
Now, I don't know how you were raised, Tyr, but I sure as hell had a lot more responsibility than a child with two parents. My relationship with my mom was a lot of me taking care of her as much as she took care of me. And taking on that responsibility, it expanded into how I worked with the community, how I worked with other people, how I bonded with people. Which, if you look at the type of person Aunt May it was, and the type of relationship that Peter and Aunt May have in this new universe, then he already had the responsibility, but without the power for the reference to go on. He just had to build the relationship between the two and hadn't been placed in a situation where having that power might test his responsibility.
All right, so, okay. All right. Can I?
Go ahead.
All right. I know your point. Single mother, only child. Me and my mother, long time, just two of us. But that still does not change my argument. It is something to have Peter Parker and not have Uncle Ben die and deliver those lines, to give him those words at his origin, at his start. makes no sense. He already has the responsibility. He saved the world. He saved the universe. He's fought big battles. He has that responsibility, and he has the power. It makes no sense to deliver this line because it's fucking super. It's not needed. This lesson did not need to be learned.
How
That
far?
is
It
a
only served to kill her
potential
off.
argument. That is a potential argument that I can agree with.
And again,
to an extent, I honestly think it was needed, given the specific situation as I presented it in my argument.
Having
Because,
her
like
die served no purpose. Having her deliver that line in at the end of his journey, when he's already decided to be Spider-Man, to be the hero that people need. He's went through the shit with Mysterio. Like, he was already at his low, and he realized, you know what? I have the ability to stop him, and I need to do this. He already had with great power comes great responsibility already in him, just not the words, because Happy gave them to him. Having her give him those words serves no purpose, and having her die serves no purpose to the story. It just makes for it's just shock value.
Having her die gave him the necessary acceptance of the fact that he had to just let everybody forget.
No, it didn't.
Because if he had just let everybody forget in the first place, the whole thing wouldn't have happened.
Well, if he'd have actually thought and tried calling the school first, he wouldn't have brought about that whole thing. The other thing I'm going to get into a little of is what Aunt May is supposed to be. Them killing her off destroys his rock. In all reality of every Spider-Man iteration and everything, one of the biggest things is obviously, Spider-Man is Peter Parker, the Miles Morales thing. But for when you have Aunt May in there, she is always his final grasp into reality, to not go overboard, to not lose sight of who and what he truly is. And so to kill her off in a lot of cases is to go through and say, he can go overboard. It's the reason why in a few iterations of that, like when people have made threats or it's like even made attacks at Aunt May, he's broken into prisons, beating the shit up and say, you ever do that again, there would be nothing to stop me from killing you.
Yeah, and Aunt May, from what I remember, like listening to comic book curations, like she's like had like every disease known to man. Like she's always on the verge of death, just from old age or whatnot. And as much as I love Marissa Tomei, it is a little unsettling having a hot Aunt May.
It is really so freaking weird.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take it.
Okay.
I like her.
I mean, I'm not complaining, but it's just like it doesn't feel like Spider-Man. Like, this is supposed to be a little old lady.
Well,
yeah,
if you have impure thoughts about Aunt May.
If you feel that Ben must deliver this line and nobody else can, how far do you take that perspective? Must every Gwen Stacy die? Must every MJ get married?
I don't think it necessarily has to be Uncle Ben itself. The thing is, for that one, is it's supposed for the origin point of that situation, it's supposed to be the main father figure he has in his life. And it's that father, losing that father figure, with that father figure trying to do what was right and imparting that wisdom onto him. So quite literally, he's losing any father figure that he legitimately had. So like, it being Tony Stark kind of made sense. It's the reason why, when you hear him say, and I only know this one, I think it's from I don't know if it was Far From Home or Homecoming, to when he says, I'm nothing without the suit, then he's like, then you don't deserve it.
Well, do we ever know? We never actually meet Uncle Ben in Holland's universe, do we?
No.
So we don't even know what relationship he had with Uncle Ben, if he had a relationship with him at all.
Which is very true, because depending on which series it is, it's supposed to be he's either abandoned by his parents with his Aunt May and Uncle Ben, or they're
on the run or dead.
Well, they're typically considered dead.
what if it hadn't been Aunt May, but what if in this movie it had been Happy? Because he's been with Holland's Spider-Man through his run in the MCU, right? He's been Tony's right-hand man, head of his security.
Yeah, but they would have to kill their main comedic foil for the entire.
I mean, this
MCU.
would be like the end of the arc for like the MCU Spider-Man trilogy.
No, but Happy plays a part in more of the MCU than just Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Happy already gives him
But
the
I could
line.
do without him.
Happy gives him the line in Far From Home. That's why I said he already learned this lesson. He's already had it. In Far From Home,
I'm gonna have to watch Far From Home again.
When Mysterio reveals his true colors, he has the option of like, you could just let it go and we'll deal with it. And he goes, no, I have to do this. And he goes, with great power comes great responsibility. And that's the line Happy gives him. And he gives him the strength to go back and fight him because he can't trust his senses at this point. And he gets back up and he gets a brand new suit, and they're doing the whole montage of him building his brand new spider armor, and then he goes and he fucks Mysterio up. He's already learned this lesson. It is a retread, and she didn't need to die to impart this lesson. And again, this lesson should be learned in the beginning.
This lesson isn't okay. The lesson that you just talked about is not the lesson that he learned in this movie. I don't know what movie you saw, dear, but...
Well, because from what it sounds like, he didn't really... The only lesson he learned wasn't from May in that one. It's the fact that if he was going to go through the whole thing of being forgotten about to save his friends and family, then he should have done that from the get-go. Which wasn't what May was imparting. May was imparting that they deserved a second chance. They deserved to be helped.
That's the lesson that he learned from May, and from May's use of that line in this movie. Not the part that you're talking about is a completely different thing. I'm going back to my original argument, which is, look, you're going to have an important decision to make right now because I'm about to die and leave your ass.
Again, that lesson
is going to be because this guy killed me, but you can't kill him.
That's not,
because that will affect who you are.
He didn't need to die to impart that lesson.
I'm not talking about her dying. I'm talking about the reason for the word.
I'm still gonna go with like her whole like lesson of what was supposed to be done was kind of made moot, in my opinion, because of him going back to be like, okay, so if everyone forgets about me, this will stop them from coming to this world. So it kind of just made everything a little null and void. Except for him knowing. Not exactly null and void, but.
Hey guys.
What were
in both Amazing Spider-Man and
James,
back off of your mic a little.
Stop trying to eat your mic, brother.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hold on a second.
Let me fix it.
That is so much
Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah, much better.
Okay. In both the Amazing Spider-Man and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, Peter Parker was going to be a shitbag. It's like, I'm going to give them exactly what they're giving me. And that was the whole point of Uncle Ben dying, saying, hey, look, you've got this power. You got to use it the right way. And also, because of what he didn't do, that's what led to Uncle Ben getting shot to begin with. We all know this.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Agreed.
So, if it didn't happen if those events did not take place, it just means that somebody else had to help Spider-Man grow up. Insert Tony Stark, which helped him grow up. So, but I do agree with you, Tier. If that phrase shouldn't have been spoken to begin with, because Uncle Ben is moot. You know, you have someone else being giving him these adult lessons that Aunt May can't do because it's a different Peter Parker altogether.
In a different dynamic.
Exactly. But yeah,
My
I
mom
agree
can't teach
with
me to be a man.
Yeah.
Your mother can't teach you to be a man.
No, she can't. But you know what she can do?
She can show you what a man should do.
Exactly. Because I was raised with a single mom, and you hold doors open. I learned a lot of that from my mother. You know.
I would still say to go on to something that's a little brighter in that whole thing. I did like the before the credits and the little hidden scene and whatnot, that they finally brought it back so all three Spider-Man have the actual like old school Spider-Man costume.
Yeah, that was kind of nice.
Where he has the red spider on the back and it's the traditional way. I like that.
Yeah.
All right, so
okay, okay. Are we still stuck on this particular part, or can I go on to my next argument?
I'm good to go.
I'm good.
Okay. The point of watching this movie was to watch it based on its own merits, and you still can't let go of the Iron Man reference.
You're right. I refuse to let it go because it comes back into play.
We're not watching this based on the entire universe. We were watching it based on the movie.
We
went into it specifically wanting to hate it because of how it relates to the universe.
I didn't specifically come in here wanting to hate it. I honestly wanted to like. There are parts I like, but if I look at the story in its totality, I dislike it. The whole Mysterio shit, Far From Home, ruins anything else after it. It destroys Iron Man's legacy. It destroys Iron Man as a character. Someone that can build something so powerful does not have the foresight to build in a failsafe in a world where he knows he's encountered people that can take over your mind, who can impersonate you. He's encountered beings that can possess you, and he does not make a failsafe device inside of a system he created. Mind you, he's already encountered people taking his tech from him. So again, he should have had, and I take it back. He's already done it because he could shut down his Iron Man suits with a command. So him not putting a shutdown command inside of the EDI or whatever it was called makes no sense. It destroys his intelligence.
And he's understand that Tony Stark isn't God,
but he's intelligent enough to realize someone already took control of my tech.
But he's not adorable.
He's also looking at this as, I'm making this for a kid. What is a kid going to do with it? How is it going to destroy the world when a kid's problems aren't world altering?
So would you give your teenage daughter a credit card?
What?
Would you give your teenage daughter a credit card?
I would.
Actually, I probably would have if
But there's a limit.
If I had credit enough.
There's a limit. And Hammer, you said the thing. There's a limit. There's a means to stop it, right?
There's a limit.
There's a
limit. You can only spend so much. Right.
So why not do that with tech? Him going, okay, I made this for you, but I don't know if you're ready. That's why he had Happy give it to him, because he said Happy if you feel he's ready for it. But even then, people go mad. People break down and go crazy. There's no failsafe, and now you have this gun in the hands of a crazy man who can do whatever the hell he wants. And there's no failsafe.
I'm also pretty sure he didn't know he was going to die at the
Well,
time that he set up the tech to go with that.
the
He
only
was
the only thing I
figuring that
can
it was going to move on to Peter probably like at least 10 years down the road.
only thing I can say about that is that Tony Stark was just a human being, and human beings make mistakes no matter how smart you are.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but a
If you,
fail-safe device and just in
it's
case.
it's great that you thought of it.
Hey, Tier, remind me, in the chronology of the MCU, doesn't Holland's Spider-Man enter after Age of Ultron?
Yes,
Okay.
because he's in
Civil War.
Civil War. So it's actually Age of Ultron. Yes. So he should have had a fail-safe device ready.
Well, I'm just wondering, is like Ultron was his fail-safe at one point, and it turned out bad. Like,
And he would have built another one. Like you don't give a child or you don't give somebody something so powerful without a safeguard, right?
It's exactly what Happy
Unless
did, right?
you don't give a child something like that. You give somebody time to prepare and mentor and everything that he was doing with Peter and anticipated, as I said, most likely doing for another solid 10 years or so. And then he told Happy, give it to him when he's ready. He didn't figure Happy was going to give it to him like so close to the time that he happened to croak.
Again, it breaks his character if he does not develop. Oh, I've had this issue with one of my fail safes. Let me build another fail safe just in case it fucks up. Tony's always been so depicted as intelligent. He is literally one of the highest and the smartest people in the world, the universe of Marvel.
In this iteration of the MCU.
Yeah, of this MCU. So him not thinking, I need a backup of a backup of a backup because people get taken up. I've seen people get possessed. I've seen people,
He's got a Burt Gummer this shit.
You got a Burt Gummer. You're right. He's seen people get possessed, taken over, mind controlled. Break down and go crazy. Betray people, and I give him this power that no one can stop it but him, and I'm trusting him to be him. Maybe just in case I should build in a kill switch.
Well, we can
the
easily.
Final scene kind of resolve that with him.
He takes it back and turns it off instead of having a kill switch that could be activated by computer. Like
I think you're giving him more credit than it's possible, because you can make the same argument when fighting Thanos. Well, Thanos did this. Well, he could have had a backup, and Thanos did this, and he could have had a backup.
Mm-hmm.
If you keep saying he could have had a backup, then there's no reason for anybody but him to fight Thanos, because he would have beat him because he had so many backups.
Yeah,
he's intelligent, probably the most intelligent person in the MCU. I don't know about Mr. Fantastic. That's a whole nother thing, but everybody's human. There's no gods here. He can't know every iteration of every possible thing that could happen and have a backup for it. That's impossible.
He's also got to learn. You say he could have had a backup, but he's also got to have those situations presented to him where he sees the need for the backup. You're kind of arguing like he should be paranoid 24/7.
Age of Ultron, his failsafe failed. His tech turned against him. Like you're telling me he did not learn the lesson of maybe
He's also a tinkerer. He's got look at Iron Man 3.
Okay, we can also put this to rest in the whole fact this is also Hollywood writing.
Yeah,
right.
I mean,
okay. Have we beaten this horse?
Have we summited Melt? What's your point here?
I want to hit the horse a few more times.
Well, Summit Melt, what's your point already?
No, I was just saying I want to hit the horse a few more times. I hit it.
Okay. If you would like, we can move on to your issues with the end credit scenes.
Okay. It's just one issue.
Okay.
I want to know
Which
why
is?
Eddie Brock was
Because
there.
I needed to save the previous issue till after we discussed the Uncle Ben line issue.
I want to know why Eddie Brock was there.
Because if you actually see the Multiverse of Madness,
This takes place before the Multiverse of Madness.
this does take place before the Multiverse of Madness because the spell that brought in the people who knew Peter Parker actually opened the ability to travel between multiverses.
Nope, it did not.
It did. It was an
It did
after
not.
effect of the spell when he fucked it up because of Peter making all of the alterations. It was explained in the Multiverse of Madness.
America could travel through dimensions on her own. She didn't need.
It wasn't her. She wasn't the only one doing it.
And the Scarlet Witch could do that too.
She didn't realize that. That was why she wanted America Chavez.
Yes,
I mean, I do kind of see Tier's point with the Eddie Brock thing, like at least that version of Eddie Brock.
Yes,
because that's I haven't seen the Venom movies. Again, I'm in the dark, but in either one of the Venom movies, did they have any reference to Spider-Man?
Nope.
Thought they said they had a slight reference to him in the second, but this is what they were doing for that one was to introduce Venom into this series.
To introduce the symbiote.
Because you have part of the symbiote that gets left in there in that whole thing, and I think it's being separated as basically a new symbiote that's going to become the Venom of this series.
This goes directly against the comic book.
And
this started in Secret Wars.
I was thinking along the lines of like the animated series,
I'm thinking the animated series tour.
And Spider-Man 3, because those had fairly consistent with the kind of like the symbiote. And again, like I said, I hadn't seen either of the Venom movies, so I don't know necessarily how they introduce the symbiote and everything to Eddie Brock. And if I'm not mistaken, doesn't the first one take place like on the West Coast?
Yep, it's in an asteroid or something like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, because
they
find it through a spacecraft and it's brought back on the spacecraft, basically.
Yeah, like in the animated series, it was J. Jonah Jameson's son as an astronaut. He brings it back.
Yeah, and Spider-Man's the one who saves him after the shuttle crashes.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say from what I've seen of the the Venom movies that I liked is what's his name who plays Eddie Brock?
Tom Hardy.
I do
I just ask out of ignorance from not seeing either the Venom movie.
That's why, like I said, I've only seen a bit of pieces of it, and I want to say it's supposed to be in like the second one. They like they do an offhanded reference to Spider-Man that doesn't say his name.
One too, because I haven't seen the second one.
Now, if I got to choose between Topher Grace and Tom Hardy, I'm taking Tom Hardy all day and twice on Sunday.
Let me sum up what's my point on this one is I love the fact that for that Eddie Brock is he always looked disheveled and sleep deprived instead of the constant Hollywood good looking person. Like he looked like someone that would have been dealing with a symbiotic organism living inside it or as a part of him,
like he had a parasite,
instead of the whole thing of being like, well, obviously I'm a Hollywood star.
Yeah, because like they in the at least in the animated series, I remember like they kind of have him being like the mirror opposite of Peter. He's
more like Flash. Thompson.
He's well built, he's confident, good looking.
Well, that's
such an asshole too.
That became of the later writer of Venom who didn't really like the character of Venom, so he tried to make him more grotesque each drawing.
Yeah.
Because the original Venom looked a lot like Spider-Man, just black with a white spider.
Did you know that there's a theory that the Spider-Man was not the first person that Venom came in contact with, but it was Deadpool? That's why he had the black and gray suit. And after he was pulled from Deadpool, he was later found by Spider-Man. And that's why Venom was crazy, because he was with Deadpool for so long.
That would be Carnage.
No, and that
No, it's
Deadpool
Venom.
works with other symbiotes that does a 4-part thing. The reason why Venom is crazy throughout the whole thing is because he's the first of the symbiotes that doesn't consume their host. He's able to feed on their neural wavelengths and whatnot. So he's able to basically feed off emotion instead of having to eat the host itself, which is why the Venom in this one, or it's like in the Venom thing, more closely goes to the way the original symbiotes are.
Well, Venom was created in '84 for Secret Wars. Spider-Man walks up to a machine, pulls a lever, and out comes this little black dot. He reaches for it, picks it up, and it covers him. That's so the symbiote in the comic books. Spider-Man was the first person it came in contact with. That's why it has all the same markings that Spider-Man has. But that's only in the comic books.
Yeah, because for so much of it, the reason why Venom goes mad a bit as well, or the symbiote does, is because it got separated from its original host, who it longs to be part of. Yeah,
it is a twisted love. Like it is a twisted love. Like it loved Peter and it rejected his gifts in him. And Eddie hated Peter, and they had this. They had the same emotions. I want Peter with the same intensity, or you know.
Well,
two sides of the
Eddie
same
didn't
coin.
hate Peter. Eddie hated
It's bonded with
Spider-Man.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it made them more palatable and acceptable. You know, that was their issue and how they got together. But my issue with this one is, in this universe, Tom Hardy's Venom has no clue who Spider-Man is.
Yeah.
He shouldn't be there.
That was a limitation on the fact that they didn't know the Spider-Man name to use in the movie.
Yeah.
Because the okay. For the reason, like as I mentioned, that the
I mean, it's a throwaway gag, but it's a stupid throwaway gag.
I mean, I think we're thinking about this like from the writing standpoint, and I think that's one where you have to go back to the production standpoint, because Sony owns the rights to Spider-Man and all the characters associated with it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was a joint venture between Sony and Marvel, and that's probably why they put the Sony, Tom Hardy, Eddie Brock in there. It's because that's the current Eddie Brock they've got going with the Venom movie.
Instead of Topher Grace.
Instead of bringing back Topher Grace, yeah. Because you already had, plenty of representation from the Raimi Spider-Man franchise with Maguire and Thomas Hayden Church and Willem Dafoe and Alfred Molina. So they were trying to that would be my guess, just being a layman, is that they were padding out the Sony roster with.
I also think it was like, I want to say it was released right before the second Venom movie.
Yeah, I do believe so.
Kind of a tie-in.
Well,
so
it was also to go
more
into that
publicity for the new movie.
And it was to tie in that whole thing of, since they were saying, the people who knew Peter Parker was Spider-Man, and that whole thing could could be brought there. So, he knew. Oh, it's like it was supposed to be like implied that supposedly somehow, and that maybe Venom saw something, but wasn't fully. It didn't bond technically with Peter Parker.
Well, okay.
But that's just getting into, again, it's Hollywood writing.
I was about to ignore that and go. Another issue I had with it is, if Strange could have sent them home at any point because they didn't have to be together, then why didn't Strange just fucking send them home and they didn't have to be together? There was no need to collect them. If he'd have just sent everybody back, they'd have been gone, because they didn't collect Tom Hardy.
Oh. If
And he
was
was
Tony
still
Stark
there
dead?
after everybody went back.
No, he portaled out with everybody. That's what it was implied.
He was telling them to collect them while he was working on it, so that way they would create less carnage and destruction.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, also, with Tony Stark dead, who's going to wipe? Spider-Man needs to start cleaning up his own mess instead of relying on somebody else. And Doctor Strange ain't going to wipe Tom Holland's ass for the next 6 movies.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's basically what it was. Is go collect these people, go collect anyone that came out to make sure he doesn't do that, so he could go through and get the process that he needed to do to reverse it.
Because if you remember, at the start of it, it was, oh, you don't have to call me sir. We saved the world together. And then after he screwed up, it's
No, sir.
it's
Oh,
sir.
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 Because he realized that he forgot that he's still a child, and
this is why I don't have kids.
no, because you exchange them with the one that went and got the abortion and put them in your timeline.
Ooh.
You
bad.
need
It's
to
too bad.
shut up.
It's too bad
Burn
Tom
on
Holland's
Strange.
character didn't think about the permutations of the spell before Strange started casting him. If he would have gone to Strange and said, "I want you to get rid of everybody but these 3 people,"
Well, as well,
movie's a much different
Strange
movie, you know.
Well, hold
Strange
on.
would have should have
Hold
asked
on.
him too.
Hold. Yes,
Sorry.
I was actually just going to say that. It's like that's what Strange should have said as well before he even started casting the spell. Been like, okay, is there anyone who's supposed to still remember you before we get into this? Because once I get into it, I can't stop. We have to ride this into the scene of the accident.
I think they damaged the Strange character in this movie.
Yeah,
because he was way more cavalier with
Magic.
with his magic, and yeah, it just didn't seem like he was taken. At least that character wasn't taken very seriously in the plot of this movie. Because that does seem like something that Strange would have asked, like, are you sure like everyone's going to forget,
Yeah,
he would have laid it out.
Have you exhausted all other options before this?
And also, like, I mean, the character of Peter Parker is supposed to be, a really smart guy. Like, we're supposed to just gloss over the fact that he didn't even think to plead his case. He just goes straight to, I'm going to go to the Sorcerer Supreme, and
Well, I mean, that was supposed to be actually a closer reference to what happened after Civil War so long, because during the Civil War thing, Parker does side with Tony and that whole thing of showing who he is. But because of issues that happen, MJ ends up getting hurt and everything. Because the whole Civil War thing is supposed to happen. Yeah, like he's married to Mary Jane Watson.
I got one better for you. They didn't think about doing just crediting J. Jonah's words by having like a Strange polymorph into Peter Parker and have Peter Parker make an appearance while Spider-Man's there. And hey, why are you pretending to be me? Like who the hell said you were me? Like
if they get caught, they're screwed.
Have him. Oh shit! And J. Jonah is already a big ass fucking blowhard. They could have instantly discredited him with that.
Yeah, well, especially considering the fact that before the whole it gets to that, J. Jonah is a fucking podcaster.
And that's another thing that boggles my mind.
You know, they did like a kind of like almost like an Alex Jones dig.
Yep.
Yeah, he was Alex Jones, and that's another thing.
Supplements.
Mm-hmm.
J. Jonah was never antagonistic to this degree to Spider-Man. Like, Jonah understood that Spider-Man he didn't like him because he was a vigilante, but he never.
But he also he moved papers,
Depending on which it was, depending on which story arc you're going with as well. He does partially blame Spider-Man for not saving his wife. And one of the storylines there is that Peter Parker Spider-Man fails at doing what need to be done, and Jonah's wife, as a result, dies as a casualty.
In the animated series, doesn't he fail to save his son?
No, he saves his son.
No, he saves his son, but he does the spin up basically saying that Spider-Man tried to bring the fucking thing down.
Hmm.
I think.
Oh,
It's been a long time.
I'm getting a little fuzzy because I've been up for like 27 hours.
Yeah, we're like an hour and a half in. I think we're gonna call it here and go and do things. I know Hammer still has. Believe you have meetings tonight, or is that tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Oh man, I'll tell you, there's so many things going on in the background for the work we're doing on the internet that it's a 24-hour job at least.
Yeah,
lately.
I still got some other stuff to work on.
I'm sorry I picked such a controversial movie.
It wasn't controversial.
No, I'm
honestly, other than the quaint thing, we stayed on topic of this one fairly well.
Yeah, that generally doesn't happen around here.
Especially if we don't like it. Depending on
I just had.
We leave.
Normally we just have
had things to say.
Normally we have James being contradictory for contradictory's sake.
Yeah.
I am sorry if I talked over people, by the way. Sorry.
I apologize for nothing.
I generally have to be contradictory because it lengthens out the show.
Well, I mean, dude, we all had that on
topic.
Kiss of Death, where it's like we all liked it. We just had a little bit different opinions on like Rappaport and whatnot, and shit, we still did like an hour of something predominantly talking about that movie. But before we close up in that whole thing, Camel, you got anything in the works for the YouTubes?
Not currently, but I'm gonna start kicking around some ideas and see if I can get back to doing something.
All right, James, you still on hiatus for your Nerd Out streams?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and like we said, Hammer has it's Wednesdays for
Wednesdays for my show, yeah.
Yes, and I have that link.
Thursdays for Johnny Hellcat too.
Yep.
I do try to show up there.
Try.
And you may occasionally, if they do a powwow stream. I believe Angela, you still have.
We haven't done one of those in a while. Yeah, so
that's why I said if he does one. And I believe Angela, you still have the comic book curated in the works.
Yes.
Obviously, the main thing is finding the comic books themselves.
Yes.
Yo ho ho.
Other than the midnight show, do you have anything else in the work tier?
I'm gonna try to get it to restart the series of if someone with an imagination fix woke shit. So I'm gonna have to suffer through a lot of woke crap and fix it.
I got a video I gotta make, plus I got that opening I gotta make for you for this Saturday. But no, I got a video I gotta make on my Beretta for the stuff I've done to it to make my Samurai Edge. But this has been a fun one. It got a little heated there for a little bit, seemed like. And this one we didn't have to have someone be contrary for contrary's sake. But for everyone who visited, appreciate it. Go check out all the links in the description. I think I even left Will in there because he's been here before. And he'll be joining us on Sunday for Tremors 5 Bloodlines. But hope everyone has a good week. Hope you have a good month of the spookiness. We're all going to go probably lay down for a bit.
Have a great night. Go to the movies.
All right,
Especially because we're old.
Radio show.